The word dynamo comes to mind when I think of this next storyteller. Her can-do spirit is infectious and gives the people she works with the energy and support they need to thrive. Please welcome this woman I admire, Margo Walsh.
Hi. A favorite quote of mine is from Nietzsche that says, "In heaven, all the interesting people are missing." So this is my story of lost and found, and I'm really grateful to be here. From the beginning, my entire life was formed by my addictive personality, and it started with sugar. I was caught with my hand in the cookie jar, literally, all the time. I remember the sound of it. I was insatiable, and in my case, there was a pattern of sneak the substance, stuff it all in, and then act like everything was totally normal, nothing to see here. This is the vicious cycle of addiction, and it went on for years. But my addictive personality also fueled my insatiable interest in other people. And so, by expanding my networks, it led to a really important part of my life, which was a career in recruiting. I worked at the highest echelons of finance. I recruited within the investment banking division at Goldman Sachs in New York. I got married. I had 2 sons. I was careening through my adult life. It all looked great on the outside, but I was totally broken and empty on the inside. And I was drinking every single day. So in 1997, in a completely unglamorous way, I crashed into rehab right before Christmas, stayed in rehab during Christmas, which is like a really sad country song because my 2-year-old was expecting Santa and Mommy was in rehab. But I was there for the ice storm in Maine in 1998, and I found that rehab really changed everything, and the people that I met there actually saved my life. It feels like you're on a lifeboat where collective loss is the common denominator, not your resume. Being in rehab and recovery facilitated even more connections for me. I found people who I could relate to, not based on success, but based on mutual devastation. I also found hope where I absolutely did not expect it, because I was both vulnerable and validated at the same time. I felt like I could really start over again. So in early recovery, we moved home to Maine because I was determined to raise my kids here and to take care of my ailing dad. And I was still going to a lot of recovery meetings. And the 12 steps of recovery offer a great plan for life. Basically, give up the substance, clean up your act, and then start giving back. And so my giving back was that I was volunteering at the Cumberland County Jail pre-release employment dorm. I was there to facilitate 12-step group meetings, but I saw so much potential in these young men and women who were incarcerated but had worked really hard to work on the outside of the prison, and I knew that when they got out that no one would hire them. I thought, maybe I could help them. Maybe I could help them rebuild their lives while I'm working on rebuilding my own. So I went to the sheriff and I said, since no one will hire felons, what if I start a company and only hire felons? That is actually kind of funny. I didn't even know what picture they used. All right, so he laughed out loud. He literally did. I remember that sound. He said, you're really crazy, but you can try, so that's what I did. I started MaineWorks to hire felons. I started driving inmates to the job site and then would come back at the end of the day and bring them back to the dorm at night. And then it became too much for me to just drive by myself, so naturally, I recruited my teenage son. So Jack, who was in high school at the time, would drive to school, to the inmates, get the inmates, bring them to the job site, and then go to school himself. So MaineWorks uses a staffing industry model for people in reentry from jail and prison, and we've hence loosened our requirements to be just felon only to now addicts in recovery are also welcome to work at MaineWorks. So as MaineWorks grew, we were excited by our continuing connections and meaningful friendships throughout the community, and our employees were being hired full-time by our clients. We mostly worked in construction and landscaping for our two core businesses. So I just wanted to introduce you to one or two of the workers that we had over the years. There was one guy from Lewiston, Maine named Anthony. He was one of my first employees ever. And one night during a blizzard, he was so determined to work that he came outside in the driving snow at probably 2 in the morning to show me how he had fashioned plastic produce bags as inserts for his sneakers instead of boots. So I later learned that Anthony, whose father had actually worked for me while he was incarcerated, he didn't have any family to bring him to military entry point, which is what he had decided to do. So he invited me to join him at his military entry point ceremony, and he's now in the Special Forces. So thank God. And then I have a young man from Rwanda named Nestor Nishimana, who had been shot several times in the back of his legs as he was escaping civil war in Rwanda. And then he came to this country as a refugee and ended up in Maine, of all places. And he struggled with addiction, but he found MaineWorks. He's now in recovery and raising his beautiful little girl in Pennsylvania with his wife. One other story that I think is important to share is there was a young woman who had been incarcerated for drug trafficking with her husband, perfect scenario. And then she got out and needed a job, so she came to MaineWorks. And then she went to a MaineWorks function. We had a fire circle, and her daughter was coughing a lot. So we urged her to bring her to quick care, which she did. And after testing, it turned out that her daughter had leukemia. And so that now Heather was an available mom and engaged as a mom so that she could care for her very sick child. And then a few years later, after treatment, Kayla was finally able to ring the bell at the cancer ward to indicate that she had been cancer-free. And they just came to visit MaineWorks a couple of weeks ago, and Heather looks amazing, and Kayla is all grown up. It's just ridiculous how fast that happens. And her mom is still sober. So we are always brought into different discussions as MaineWorks because people see how we interact with the criminal justice system naturally, employment and labor systems, and all of the challenges of housing. And so in 2017, my sister and I were talking one day, and there was a woman at MaineWorks who had no teeth because she had been a heroin addict, which really can decalcify your bones. So she and I talked about starting a nonprofit that would be a partner. MaineWorks is an LLC, and the partner 501c3 we established is called United Recovery Fund. And United Recovery Fund exists to help people with everything related to starting over after incarceration towards employment, including rent assistance, dental, mental health care, gift cards for Hannaford, gift cards for cell phones, and all of their exterior workwear. And we have a lot of fun and parties, and we go on boat trips, and it's just incredible. So MaineWorks is the job, and then United Recovery Fund is the LLC. So my brother sadly passed away from this disorder, and he was from LA, so just came to me, weird. Anyway, as we have grown, so now we are receiving funding from the state of Maine. We've received money from the opioid settlement funds to expand MaineWorks in the Mid-Coast region. So thanks. So now, the houses that we've established, my son Jack, the one who used to drive for us, he went off and got a degree in finance, and now he's our CFO, and I'm really proud of him. He started 2 houses named for our incredible finance leader named Cecil. So we have Cecil's Place Sober Living, MaineWorks is the job, and then the 501c3 nonprofit helps with anything you can imagine. So we're really excited about where we have come, and because a sense of belonging is so important, we started this fire circle. This happens every single Friday morning. I'll be there tomorrow morning at 6 a.m., And we gather in the parking lot of MaineWorks. It is not glamorous. People share their stories. Community partners come. A couple of weeks ago, the mayor was there. Just the chief of police comes. And actually, the mayor, speaking of whom, the mayor who was here a couple of weeks ago is the same guy who was the sheriff back in 2010 when I asked him if I could take the inmates out for the day. I can't believe he came to the circle. Luke, you would have loved it. One of my friends is here today, two really important people to me, so I'm really excited to share this more broadly. But this fire circle represents an imperfect journey and reminds us that the most interesting people are those who get lost along the way. You're all welcome to join us for coffee any Friday morning at 6. Thank you.